Good afternoon. Today on my calendar is to plant out my tomato plants. This might seem a little bit early for some. It is not quite yet September. I have a very large tunnel house with quite a bit of brick and plants and things still in here, so it doesn't get below freezing in here, thankfully. I have tested that quite carefully with some tomato plants up here for the last 10 days or so. I've had them under frost cloth overnight. Even with them not covered in the last few nights where there has been frost outside, they've been perfectly fine in the tunnel house. They are getting ridiculously leggy for the size of the pots, and so the alternative is that I pot them all on into bigger pots, but then I need a whole lot more space for them. And the plants that were in the garden where they were, I've already kind of finished. There was some broccoli and some cauliflower. There's a few there that's still waiting to finally fruit, so I can harvest those, but for the most part most of the things that are in there are pretty much done. So I'm going to rip all of those out and feed them to our garden chickens. These are a breed of meat chickens that my daughter is working on establishing. They're sort of a mixture of a few different breeds. But for the most part they live up here and they process my garden waste into compost, and then once the garden's all nice and clear I have got all this, also compost, I was like potting mix, no, compost from the first lot of pigs we had. So that's probably maybe 8 months ago we had them on deep bedding, and I made a massive compost pile with that, turned it a few times, and it's been sitting bagged up ready to go up in the garden. So unfortunately it's quite wet, some of it, so the wetter stuff I've actually got sitting behind me to try and dry out a wee bit in the tunnel house, but the drier stuff I've put down probably close to 2 inches right along this whole side where I'm going to be putting the tomato plants. Now the tomato plants themselves I tie up with these strings, and the strings themselves just stay here. Honestly, I have never had problems growing tomatoes in the same dirt twice. Maybe if I was having issues I would consider moving them, but I grew them here last year with no problem whatsoever. The year before that I had them where the peppers are, I think. No, I had them over where the cucumbers and the melons were, and it was just far too wet and I got very little tomatoes. So this side is the drier side, it's a sunnier side, and the soil on that side is really quite deep now because of the way the ground originally went. I've built that side up quite a lot, and I've probably got close to a foot of topsoil on that side, which is brilliant for growing tomatoes. So to do that, all I am doing is snipping off these bottom couple of bottom leaves and the bottom branches. And I'm digging as deep as I possibly can with this little trowel, and then all I do is tuck the string in under the root ball, put the root ball in, hold those with one hand and pat the soil firm around with them. I've also got the drip tape running because this side has got quite dry over the winter because I haven't been watering anything in here because it hasn't needed it. But this side has got quite dry, so I'm running the drip tape to try and moisten that side up again. Under this frost cloth here I've got my peppers and capsicums and an eggplant that are still surviving despite it being winter and freezing and stuff, so the fact that they're still alive is a good sign for me for getting these tomatoes going. The other sign that I have that it's time that I can probably get them in the ground is that there are self-sown little tomato seedlings that are starting to pop up, which suggests to me that it's fine. There's also a large tomato that I don't know if you can quite see it sticking out the top of the frost cloth. It has survived the whole winter, and it is still actually fruiting. I will probably pull it out because it's looking a bit rough, but I left it in as a bit of an experiment to see how long it would survive for. Well, once all the tomatoes are planted, all I've done is given them a good drink with a mixture of seaweed tonic and some humic and fulvic acid, obviously mixed with water, diluted to their instructions, and I've just given them a really good water in, and then I have covered them with frost cloth. I will leave that there for the next couple of days just while they get their new roots established, and then I'll probably just take it off. I think I've planted about 80 tomato plants, which for us is plenty. Probably about 20 of them are canning tomatoes and the rest of them are for fresh eating. It's not so warm here, so we don't get the biggest crop per plant, so that's why I've got so many. Some people I hear in the States, and they are obviously, some are a wee bit warmer than us, and they're like, oh, 5 plants is plenty for us to can for whatever sized family, because they get kilos and kilos or pounds and pounds of tomatoes off them, but for whatever reason we just don't here. So I've got about 20 San Marzano canning tomatoes. They crop best for me, and then a whole bunch of a variety of eating ones. There were some leftovers, and so I have potted a bunch on to give to my mother, and I've got another whole big tray of spear San Marzanos, which I'm going to ask a few people if they want. As the tomato plants grow, all I'll do is wind them around the string and continue to remove those lower branches. Eventually they'll grow right up to the ceiling, and then I chop the tops off and let them ripen the last of their fruit. You may remember from a previous video I said I'd buried a bunch of the tomatoes at the base of the existing tomato plants, and so far with that experiment very few of those have actually sprouted. I think I need to do that earlier in the season, or break the tomatoes actually open so the seeds can come out, because as I'm looking, the tomatoes are still whole, so obviously they're not going to sprout yet. So I will be trying that again next year, and it may well be, we'll wait and see, that they may sprout up. We'll see how these tomatoes go. Sometimes if you get them in the ground too early, I get about aphids through and they struggle. So I'll wait and see. These ones are way bigger and way stronger than any tomato plant I've ever grown by this time of year. Usually I'd be waiting another 3 or 4 weeks before I actually get them in the garden. But they've done so well, they've grown so fast, and they were getting so big that I thought, heck, I might as well just get them in the ground. But I'm hoping with all this sweet alyssum and the other little flowering plants that I've got here, there's already heaps of hoverflies around, and I have seen a few ladybugs, so I'm hoping to avoid the aphid issue this year. Because I've given these guys so much compost and they're going into so much deep soil, I'm not actually going to be feeding them. Often in previous years I've given them a big scoop of blood and bone in the bottom of their holes. The first year we grew them here, we had a mineral mix that was put together by the people that did our soil test for us. And so they all get a scoop of that as well as some blood and bone. But this year I'm just giving it a bash, doing it straight in the ground with a layer of compost on the top. And I think the trick will be to keep them watered while they're getting established. If you want to see more information about how I overwinter my pepper plants, I'll link that video up here. Thanks for joining me today. I'll catch you on the next one.